Hello and welcome to my rich mathematical task in music. That's me, Jason Velo. Introduction. Let's face it, besides being forced to practice your instrument, music theory can be a drag. Here is an activity that I hope will encourage you to learn basic theory by actively listening to music. Here's a quote. Music is the pleasure the human mind experiences from counting without being aware that it is counting. That's Gottfried Leibniz. Now, we're going to do a bit of counting today, learning how to count music so that we can forget how to count music. Table of contents. This is a brief breakdown of what is to follow in this presentation. Something for teachers, the actual instructions for the students. There's going to be a little demonstration, and then some conclusions that we can chat about. Here's for teachers, information about the task and the tools needed. Now, lots of words here. Basically, this says we're going to dissect and analyze pop songs familiar to students and encourage discoveries by comparing these findings to older songs in the same genre. We're going to cross-compare older pop songs and newer pop songs and their progression across 50 years. We're going to look at their song structure. We're going to be actively listening to this. There's a future expansion on this exercise that can include analyzing chord progressions, harmony, melody, and rhythms found in other genres throughout history. Now, what is the prerequisite for this? Well, it would be nice if this was for a high school music class who all have the understandings of what a measure is or a bar in music in 4/4 time. This is something that's covered quite early in music, but really is established in high school students. Basic understanding of a tempo, beats per minute or BPM is going to be used in this. And basic structure of songs, so verses and choruses. Teachable moment here to introduce a pre-chorus. Most students will understand that from listening to pop music, rap music, country music, anything sort of rock, but not normally heard in classical or band music. Now, this all being said, I believe this could be taught to a general music appreciation class as long as you could relate the counting to 4 as being a measurement of musical time or a measure. If you could get people to understand that basic measurement in music, I think this exercise would be great. All right, what do you need? A playlist. You have to be able to get your group of 2 or 3, it's explained later, to be able to hear a playlist of music together at the same time. So if that means headphones plugged into one device, or some room where students could go with a speaker, they all have to be able to listen to this at the same time. Muy importante. Computer, number 2. They have to track their findings on a Google Sheet. This could be printed out, I guess, and used, but there's a little bit more interactivity, and there are some formulas that the Google Sheet is going to perform. That's going to make all of this data make sense. Number 3, recording software. This is a real optional part of this task, to use the findings and the averages from the findings to record their own song. We'll get into that more later. And of course, a dance floor to celebrate the groovy compositions that are going to be created from this. Mathematization and rich task. How is this all related? Well, if you want to pause the screen, there are some quotes from these wonderful works that I extracted that I believe this is indeed mathematization and a rich task that involves math but music. Okay, something for the students, a step-by-step guide to figuring out the secrets of pop songs and how to write $1 million song. Well, let's see. Math and pop music. Here's a quick breakdown that students would read on, this is just a Wikipedia definition of math and one of pop, so it kind of overlaps here on the fact that there are definitely components. There are measurable items that you can count and look at. The rich task. So the student would read this. You and your group of 2 to 3, I think that'd be ideal, will analyze pop music spanning over 50 years to identify patterns and compare song structures. You will then answer questions about your findings and compose your own song based on the patterns you discover. Cool. Follow these steps. All right, now I'm going to blast through this and then come back for a quick demo. But basically they would open their playlist, listen to the songs in there. Well, later they will. Number 2, there's a Google Sheet. They'll click there and it'll open a Google Sheet. And then number 3, I guess if students have a hard time reading a spreadsheet, because this really is, there's a component of this that is reading a spreadsheet. So this is something, a teachable item, I hope that the teacher can use as an excuse to kind of get them to start thinking about this spreadsheet format. But I've also created a form that students can actually enter in all of this information, and it gets loaded into the spreadsheet automatically. So just a workaround there. Continuing with these steps. Number 4. Okay, this is about the sample. On the spreadsheet, you'll see there's a sample line that kind of digs into the results that the student should expect doing the sample song. So they're not graded on the sample song. It's just sort of an anchor to sort of start. Now, number 5, the step there, it's really important for them to be able to learn how to count bars. And you do this aloud together as the music starts. So if that's the tempo of the music, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4. So we just counted 4 measures of music. And this is how they're going to count and calculate all of the measures within sections of their song. We'll go through this in the demo, okay? Now try these steps. Now this is really getting into the project for themselves, the activity for themselves. They go back to the Spotify playlist. They look up the composer and the year, and on this Song Facts website, all of these bold text, these are all clickable links that open up other links. If they're having a hard time understanding what the verse, the pre-chorus, and chorus is in their music, thankfully all of those are laid out on a website called Genius, Lyric Genius, and it really lays out, okay, now they're in the verse, now they're in the pre-chorus, the chorus. I'll show that example as well. But if there's any sort of, this is just sort of a little boost if they're not having a success counting the measures, or they're starting to overlap, they're counting a verse and a chorus together, this lyric sheet will really establish the difference between those sections. Now, yeah, they got to double check it, and then they do this for each song, okay? So the questions that they'll answer by doing this, I'm going to go back to step 1, and this will now be the demo part of this video, which I hope is not going to be too long. But boy, once you get down that rabbit hole. Okay, this is the playlist. Now I'm going to just get out of that and go to Spotify, my own Spotify, just to make it a little bit easier. So you can hear, oh yeah, there's some Rick Astley, Never Gonna Give You Up. So that's going to be the sample that they will see when they go to the Google Docs. Wow, it's a little bit of a mind-blowing experience when you first see the document, but it does start to make sense. The composer over here, of course. Now, I've created these these options. This could be something else a teacher could use if they want to sort of have students mix and match or find the right, okay, who sang that song. But for right now, for our demo, it's Rick Astley, Never Gonna Give You Up. The year, so they can also click here. This is the Song Facts I was talking about. It goes to a great website. They can research their song and get the date here. The tempo. This is super important, and this is something that will require a bit of teacher but reaffirmation that they actually got this right. So I'm going to go back to this song. I'm going to press play. I'm going to go over to the beat calculator. I'm pressing any button. I'm going to click along. Okay, well, that looks like about 113. So when they go back to their sheet, they'll notice that, yeah, the tempo is 113 beats per minute. Okay, so that will establish then that they are now going to be counting measures based on this number. They're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. So let's just listen to Rick again from the top, and we will listen to see how many measures are in the introduction, okay? 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 5, 2, 3, 4, 6, 2, 3, 4, 7, 2, 3, 4, 8, 2, 3, 4, 1. We're no strangers to love. Okay, so that's where the lyrics came in. Now, they would be able to see this on the, let's go to this, we'll go quickly here to Song Fact. Nope, wasn't that one. Sorry. The Genius website. We're going to look up, Never Gonna Give You Up. It's right here. So you can see there's an introduction. As soon as he starts to sing We're No Strangers to Love is when the verse starts. So if they did even start counting this incorrectly, it's going to take a few passes to sort of get into their flow and realize, oh, the verse started there. It didn't start with a word on beat 1, but we know now that we are actually into verse 1 with these words. So they'll go along and calculate all of these numbers. Now there's no interlude, and this is something that I explain in here somewhere. Okay, enter a 0 in this column. If there's no interlude, which you actually see in this, there's no interlude between the chorus and the verse in the Rick Astley song, so you put a 0, because there are interludes in some of the other pieces. Now, so let's assume I've done this. This is automatically calculated, the total measures, and then it also averages things down here at the bottom. Let's look at the complete form. So this is every song that's on that Spotify playlist, the year. And the reason why Rick Astley was kind of down as a sample here, because I put 2 earlier works of pop songs before Rick Astley to kind of give it this 50-year span. Here are all the tempos. Whoops, get out of there now. Come on. All of these tempos, and then the introductions for all of these songs. Now, what I'm wanting students to learn here, let's go to the questions. Is there a pattern developing through the years with the increase or decrease of measures in particular sections of music? Well, absolutely. If you look at introductions, now with the exception of the Carpenters only having 4 measures, they kind of start up higher in earlier years and they start to drop. And by the time we get to Taylor Swift and some of her music, there's no introduction at all. They come right in with singing. So what's happening there? Okay, so that's an interesting observation. You can also see pre-choruses. Pre-choruses weren't really a thing. I really do believe Rick Astley was ahead of his game a little bit with this pre-chorus sort of concept. But pre-choruses are a major part of pop music now. So we're getting into the choruses. Kind of an even spread there. There are some longer choruses and some shorter choruses. Now, it'd be an interesting conversation to have about Madonna's Material Girl, because she has a chorus that's 7 measures long. Normally, if you look down here, phrases of music are usually in groups of 4 and 8. But in this case, she has a phrase of 7 measures. This is a good conversation piece right here. Interludes, kind of scattered over the years. Verses, there we are again. Chorus, pre-choruses. Now, you'll see here, pre-chorus. Well, it looks like our friend Justin Bieber really went to town on this pre-chorus. So he doubled down on his pre-chorus, getting into what looks like he's doing, doubling down on the chorus as well. So this is also something that you're seeing. There's a double chorus going on here across time on the second chorus. They usually sing it twice. Bridges, interesting conversation that students can start to have about this. Why is the bridge disappearing over time? And you can also see here, these are important cells right here. There are no verses and pre-choruses after the bridge past 2010. Okay, it seems that songs were longer in the past. Okay, and this is sort of another question that we're bringing up here. Are the sections missing in certain decades? Well, definitely. These decades are missing a verse and a pre-chorus after the bridge. What does your group believe there are? Why does your group believe there are these differences? Well, I say in the teacher's notes here, I think steering the students towards making observations about the modern listener. You know, radio stations are playing songs that are less long. They're shorter. It's sort of that consumer, sort of that instant gratification. And I think that has, a direct result of, there being no introduction now. They want to get right into it. So they want to capture the listener sooner. Also, they want to kind of tighten up the length of the song. I'll scroll down here a little bit. The total time here on the right is decreasing over time, okay? The total number of measures is also decreasing. There are no jam-out sections anymore. There used to be this chorus and this outro. Look at there were 40 measures in the Carpenters of them sort of jamming out at the end of the song. Same with Madonna. There was this sort of jamming going on that is no longer the case. There's also this chorus here on the Carpenters song is a solo section. So solos have disappeared. So these averages down here in this green strip sort of reflect all of these averages of all of this information. Now, I've also done an average strip here of it being rounded to the closest multiple of 4 or 8. which might be helpful for when they actually start to compose, unless they're super daring and want to stick a 1-bar interlude in there as an average over time. Very interesting and not impossible, as we saw in the Madonna chorus of 7, and then she doubled down on that 7 and a full one, so 15 bars measures in a phrase. Interesting conversations to have a 13 measures of 2 choruses would be really interesting for students, and totally possible in the software that I'm going to introduce. Here are the form responses as well that could have come out of go back, this Google form. So this is another way for them to input data. There's the composer, song title, year, tempo, and it just sort of explains, add your measures up. It's the same thing, but it just gets dumped into this sheet automatically, the form responses. A tool for the teacher if they want to kind of avoid the complexity that this might actually show. All right, let's keep trucking here. We went through all of that. We went through our questions. Cool. Ready to write your own song? Heck yes, I am. Part B, using the averages from those lines that I showed, and I've got it all color coordinated here. Create your own composition following the structure of one of those formulas. You may use the average totals from line 14 if you're more daring, or line 15, which has been rounded to the nearest group of 4 measures. So I explained that a little bit, and this would obviously need some explanation. Get your groove on. Follow these instructions to create your own song in GarageBand based on your pop song research. Okay, well, GarageBand is free on a Mac. Now, I'm assuming that this exercise, part 2 especially, is in a school that has some kind of equipment. If this is group work, maybe it's something that groups do one at a time and they rotate through the one recording station. I've seen lots of recording stations in schools, and a lot of them have Macintosh computers, which would be super helpful. Now, open the GarageBand template, which we have. Enter the average tempo, cell E14 from your Google Sheet. All right, well, there's the average tempos over 50 years of pop music, okay? And you'll see that there's this average here's your tempo here that you just sort of drag up and down. So that is going to be the tempo of our song based on this data. Now, we're going to get into, let's go back to our instructions. From the provided loops in the loop browser, which is over here, from your Google Sheet, we did that, tempo section, we did that. Start building the song by dragging and dropping loops into the timeline in the center of the screen. Okay, well, here are a bunch of drum loops that I've preloaded into this template. Here is a series of drumming loops called rows, and you can actually see that they're nicely organized into intros and such. So I'm going to just take this, I'm going to drag it in. Okay, now thankfully, if we go back to our sheet, I'm going to follow this blue line, and I would encourage students to follow this probably as their first experiment on this task. Now, it says 8 measures is the average intro over 50 years of music. Now, it looks like this loop is already 8 measures, which is really great. Now, I'm going to right-click this and go to Rename Regions, and I'm going to call this an intro, just so that I can start mapping out this whole experience. And I do say that here. Once the structure, you basically... you just start dragging around your verses, your choruses to create what you discovered on this line in this app. Okay, so there's the intro. Now, maybe I'll go into what's next. We've got to look at this, 16. So we've got basically 2 verses back to back of 8 measures. All right, so I'm going to call our verse, let's call it, oh yeah, yeah, that sounds good. I'm going to drag that new soul up to here. All right, now I'm going to get rid of this loop browser right there for a second. It looks like that's only 4 measures. Do you see that? 1, 2, 3, 4, no, 5, 6, 7, 8. It is in fact 8. I'm going to expand this out a little bit so that you can see all of the measure numbers. There it is. So here's an extra little bit of math that they can do. So 9 plus 8, dun, da, 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 17. So as long as that starts on a 9 and ends on a 17, then we have ourselves 8 measures of a verse. I'm going to go back up here to the loop. I'm going to drag down here a little bit. So that's our first verse. Oh, I can rename that. Verse, okay? That's a right click. Verse. Boom. So now we've got our intro and our verse. Let's hear what this sounds like. So just hitting the stop and the play button. Pretty easy, I think, for students nowadays. Oh yeah, great. So you basically go through this whole thing. You build your intros, your verses based on the data, your findings from this line here. I'm going to bring up a final thing. Oh, and you get into different instruments, right? You get into your different instruments. You want to put in your bass line after this. Then you want to put in some other things. You can discuss this, how to layer this. You could do an example of this with the class, but I'm going to open one that I made. We won't save that one. Here it is, Rich Task song. Oh yeah. Okay, so this is the introduction. Here's the bass. Here's some synthesizer. Here's some guitar. And I'm layering all this information. I got this line. Here's the verse. Singing something real cool now. Yeah, stemming all cool now. Man, I'm in school now. Singing something really bad now. Okay, so there's the verse, and they've got a chance to sort of lay down the foundations, all of the sections of music, based on the information that they got from here. There's no interlude in this, so we've gone right from chorus to the verse. Kind of cool. Well, here comes our pre-chorus. Here's our first pre-chorus. There's going to be 4 measures of that. 1, 2, 3, yeah. Yeah. Oh man, that's building. It's building. Because here comes the chorus. And a 1, 2, 3, 8 measures. Here's the chorus of a song now. Right? Okay, so that's about as far as I have gotten on that. I'm going to go back to our slides. There's getting your groove on. Okay. How is this connected to Alberta curriculum? Well, as I reviewed Music 10, 20, 30 in the Alberta curriculum, I found these little nodes of listening, creating, and researching, and I feel that these just check off all the boxes on being critical listeners, doing their own arranging, composing, creating, and then researching, tying this to musical history, I think is a really great example of going through all of these years here and figuring out all of this data. Here's an interesting piece of data that I just realized doing this exercise that I had never known before. The tempos of the pieces somehow correlate to the total measures of these songs. And I don't know if it was just the songs that I picked by accident, but 113 is the tempo and there are 100 measures. These are very close numbers. Even this, 14 measures off, 78 and 77 on the Avril Lavigne. Kind of creepy, actually, this discovery. So that's that. Back to the slides. That's the Alberta curriculum connections. Great work. Thank you very much. Here would be a little page in case somebody has questions for me. I really enjoyed this project. Thank you so much for creating it and also the extension. And yeah, thanks again.